Welcome to this conversation with the Morningtea Marketing Missus, where we get together and we offer valuable tips on a whole lot of range of subjects to help small business owners and sole traders really reach a larger audience, improve sales, have more success in the business. Eventually, as we all want to do, achieve the dreams that we have for our business and our lives. The hosts are Narelle Gaddy. Narelle is an accessibility auditor. Narelle is our expert speaker in this conversation. I'm Janeen Vosper. I help people with their sales, have them communicate and get their story right so that they can connect with their target audience. Kate Smith is our terrific graphic designer, and she works with experience-based businesses. And Jan Roach's business is BizConnect Web Designs and Over 50s Health. So we're talking about following up. It's been a great conversation over the last few weeks, and I'm looking forward to hear what Narelle has got to share with us.
Yeah, look, thank you. It's been absolutely phenomenal because obviously you three know I've never been in a sales or marketing area in my work. I've always been in the back end, writing the code, talking to the clients. And yeah, you have to follow up with clients and do all of that. But being the role that I'm doing now, it's been such a learning curve. So I've sat here for the last 3 weeks going, yep, good point, good point. I'm going to go and watch this again and take notes. And two of the things that I've sort of thought, oh, that hasn't been said. And it's one of the things that actually inhibits follow-up is if a person has never asked what their communication style is. So say you've got a prospective client, how many people say, oh, how do you want the information sent? So you might have a client that has no email address and they only want it on paper because that's their preferred mode. They like the feel of the paper. They can sit and they can scribble notes on it, do whatever they like with paper. You might have the person only wants it by email dot point, and that works great for them, or the person that wants a story. But what about the person that can't read those things? They might say, well, yeah, I do want it by email, but make sure it's accessible. If it's PDF, make sure it's tagged. There's things you can do. And that way they can still get the information, they can read the information. But the other area that you haven't thought of, what about those that are hearing impaired? So people that can't see, you can get it via speech, whatever. A hearing impaired person has other challenges as well. There are people that are dyslexic. I've got a friend that never learnt to read until he was 30. He wrote his first book and then he had to ring his parents up and said, oh, by the way, I'm releasing a book in the Ford. It does mention I can't read, because his parents weren't told he couldn't read. But he developed strategies to get around that. And that's the first thing. If, one of the reasons people might not be following up is you might not be communicating with them in the style that they can manage. Someone with an acquired brain injury, it could be anything. And one of the first questions I like to ask people is, how do you want to communicate? Or they might drop the hint by saying, oh, just send me an email. And then. But again, always make sure it is accessible, digitally accessible, because you don't know if they can't read. You don't know if they've got a colour contrast issue, or they're colour blind, or they've got a vision impairment, or there's a visual processing. If you send them a voice text, they might be deaf. So it's just, that's the first thing I sort of, when I look at follow-up, why aren't they following? Well, there could be very good reason for it. And the second thing I was thinking, and it comes to and what we do with digital accessibility, one of the things we really like to do is, and this is following on with what you said, Jan, is to make the client feel like they are important. So once we've got the client, and Jan, you've seen me do it, Kate, you've seen me do it, we actually go on to the website to say, hey, these guys are great. They are really adding and incorporating digital accessibility into their websites or whatever they're doing. And they value their clients. So they're making sure their clients can get the communication style that they need. Now, in what I do, that's very easy to do. But we're taking it one step further. So we're starting a podcast soon. And every client is going to be on the podcast. because they can sit there and talk about the challenges of incorporating digital accessibility with us and the feedback that they can give us. So we get information back, but they get to talk about their service as well and what they do and why digital accessibility will help them. And it could be anything. And the other thing we like to do is anyone, again, that once they're our client, we like to tell people about them, because obviously updating their websites or working with their documentation, we can see what their services are and we know what their services are. So that means we can introduce them to other people that they may be able to work with. And it's such a simple thing that we can do. And it does make a difference to them because it gives them an opportunity to another market they may not have reached before.
That's really cool.
But everything you guys have said, I mean, Kate, where you were talking about follow-ups, obviously for me that was valuable because you gave me some tips that I didn't know. And the same with you, Janeen, with wording and just the tips and the way you look at things. And Jan, you and I are probably more on the same boat because we're both technology background. And the follow-ups with the clients, and like I had to think about what to say because a lot of what you do, we do as well, but we've gone in a different direction with our podcasts and letting other people know about what our clients do. But what else can we do as a group? Can we suggest to people to help people with follow-ups? What are some other tips that we haven't covered?
Yeah, Narelle, while the others are thinking, I have got a question for you.
Yeah.
Because an important part of when we first meet someone is that we get their business card.
Yeah.
And then we follow up on the business card. You can't do that. I just
No.
realized that in one of the networking groups we're with is very much on using business cards.
It is. And it's one of my biggest frustrations. There is digital business cards, which I would love everyone to use. There is a number of digital business cards that create I can never think, VCF file, I think it's called, that you can share the VCF file. And it basically creates a contact that you can go into iPhone or whatever, and you can add it to your contacts and you've automatically got it. Because, for me, I actually have to pay someone to read the business card. And, so that's a double whammy for me because I can't just... I think at times, Jan, I've had to say to you, like the pay it forward slips, and they say now, make sure your signature is legible. Well, half the time it doesn't matter anyway. I think, Jan, you've helped me out a few times where I've had to say, I have no idea. Now I actually take a photograph of the pay it forward slips and I send it to a lady and she types that up for me as well.
Yeah.
Once it's in a form that I can manage, but I've got to pay someone to do that. Because I can't do that. And it's with everything that people, anything on paper for me is really hard. I really miss taking notes and I envy anyone that can just take notes. When I had sight, I was the most copious note taker. I used to have books and they were my diaries. So I'd start out the start of the year with and it was just a straight A4 notepad. And I had every meeting, who was there, what the dot points were, what the outcomes were, what was discussed. And so it didn't matter what meeting, someone would say, and I said, yeah, hang on. And I put dates on the book, so I knew pretty well where it was. I could go back, I could find it. I had it there in my books. Now, if it's on digital, sometimes you put things in this place and sometimes they're in that place and, they can go anywhere. For me, I really had to get into systems of how I manage it. Because for me, I've always taken notes. Well, I can't. So it's changing strategies to get around that. And I still haven't got that really great, but I'm getting there with it because my sight problems are deteriorating one. So up until 12 months ago, I was able to take notes. Now I can't. So it's changing strategies and changing tack. And that's what I'm saying with follow-ups, depending on the person, change the tack, which is what you said, Janeen, and which is what you said, Kate, looking at the person. And you've said too, Jan, look at the person.
What do they need?
I often ask, how do you want to receive the information, without any thought of accessibility? It just because people want to, some are visual, some are auditory, you know, people want to receive information differently. But it's so important when with accessibility issues that how people receive it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I had my plan manager sent a financial document to me 2 weeks ago now. It was PDF, and I had to send it back saying, I can't read this. It's not accessible. And look, I can understand where she was coming from. She said, oh, but if you use this screen reader, it is. And I had to say, it's not accessible to any screen reader because it's not tagged. And the problem is it's produced by third-party software, which they spit out a report, which means it doesn't matter what she does. She's got no real control over that.
Yeah, that's tough.
So that's a follow-up issue too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a follow-up issue.
Yeah, and I created for the Redcliffe Chamber a while ago. I created business card because one of the old presidents was anti-card stabbing. He used to use the term. Whereas most people like to be able to take home a business card and whatever. And anyway, what I did was I created this business card and I created a QR code that I put on, sorry, I called it a business card, but it's actually a name badge. Have I got one here? I haven't.
I was going to ask this question.
So I just, you know, your little card.
Yeah.
I haven't got the one that I created with the QR code on it, but so I created this and I put the QR code in the corner and it had my name, my phone number, my email, my website, the office address. It had all of the details in it that anyone could possibly need for me. And if they wanted my details, instead of collecting a business card, they could just scan that QR code and it would go straight into their contacts.
Easy, isn't it?
Yes. I was thinking that
stop.
are QR codes good and accessible for you, Narelle? That's easy enough to.
As long as it links up to a web page. If it links to a graphic, the moment it's a graphic, it's not. It's got to link up to a piece of text. Graphic is like it's the old OCR. And you guys will remember when OCR started coming in, it was so inaccurate.
I do.
Thank you, Kate. I was hoping you'd say yeah, you do. But
and
OCR
I don't know what OCR is, so there
optical character recognition. And it was used to be, I remember when I first saw it, it was this machine and it would take a photo basically of the page and then it would try and work out what the letters were. Well, it's so inaccurate that it was a waste of space, really. But it was the forerunner to what we've got now. But it's still not 100% accurate. I mean, look at AI with captioning. It's not accurate. My name, it can be in a row. It can be the things that it comes out with. Janeen, they never spell Janeen's name.
No, they don't get that right.
Kate, yours is great. And Jan, I get Yan, I get Jan, I get a few different things because AI is not accurate. They're taking a guess at what it is. So optical character recognition back then was the same, and it's a lot better, but it's not great. And that's why, you know, business cards, again, people hand me business cards and I just look at them and go, yeah, another piece of paper. And that's why if you watch at our network meetings, I always sit beside someone I know. That understands. Like it'll be Linda, it'll be you, Jan, or at Northlake.
Here I was thinking because you love me, Narelle.
I love you too, Jan. But it's also most people at Northlakes are used to me and they just go, oh yeah, Narelle, it's this. Like other meetings, there's a couple of people, Darren will step in and say, here, Narelle, Kate, you've been known to step in and pull me out of trouble a few times. Kate does it with real class. I just don't do it with class. I love it when Kate does it.
Narelle loves the drama.
You don't do the drama. You just pass and come on, let's just go. I think I frighten a few people at times, but because it's, again, communication is a frightening thing. if you don't
So,
understand why a
here's a
person
question.
can't communicate. Yeah.
Here's a question. Does anybody ever ask you to fax anything to them anymore?
When I
Good
lived in
point.
Japan, they fax a lot of things. Everyone thinks
Wow.
Japan's so technological. I'm talking only 4 or 5 years ago. We
Wow.
were faxing, well, we had an internet-based fax
Hmm.
program, but they received a fax on the other end. We were
There
faxing
you go.
everything.
That's blown me away.
Crazy. But no, not in this country. I haven't faxed
Yeah.
anything for a long time.
Yeah.
I think that's the main sort of take from all of the last 4 conversations over the last few weeks on follow up is communication.
Yes.
Is how to ensure that you're communicating the right way, that the prospect or the customer wants to receive it, and that way you at least have a chance to for them to build a relation, or you to build a relationship with them, build rapport with them, because you're communicating in a method that is acceptable and usable for them.
Mhm.
One of the
It is
things
most
too is just
convenient.
rely on email. I
Mm.
used to have arguments with the juniors we worked, and they'd say, I'll just email them and say, they're 2 desks away. Just walk over and say hello. You know, just
Yeah.
talk
The
to
different
them.
generations, and that's part of some communication training I've done, is between the generations and how can communicate it more effectively.
Yeah.
It's
Gosh.
expectations, and it's a really important factor to remember.
Yeah.
It's, and you know, you get a text, if you can do it to voice, Kate and Narelle, then that's acceptable. But if you can't do it to voice, well, then you
Yeah.
can't read it.
Yeah.
And that's been cool. I'm sure that people who have listened have picked up a ton of ideas over the last month on how to follow up and look after your customers and communicate really effectively, and keeping in mind that people want to receive information in the best possible way for them to receive it. And you've got a good chance then of getting the business if you do so. It's been great. And that is another conversation with the Morning Tea Marketing Missus. We are so glad that you've joined us. We'd love for you to comment. Remember to, when you're on YouTube, leave a comment, because we know people are out there listening. We can see how many times the videos have been watched. If you can leave a comment, that we know that what you've got out of this and what you take away and what you apply, that would be wonderful. And while you're there, if you haven't already done so, share it widely and also subscribed. Thank you very much for joining us on this conversation. We look forward to next month. We're talking networking. There's a whole lot of, there's 4 people on here that network a lot and have been doing it for a long time. And I'm sure there's going to be some great ideas that we're going to share. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.